Welcome to the session on women in leadership. We have some eminent speakers with us. Let me briefly start by introducing them. So, Miss Sonali Bhagwati is an architect and a poet. She is currently the president of DPA and has received several awards, and her work has been widely published. She has been published as one of the 20 best architects of India and has been regularly featured in the Hot 100 Contemporary Indian Architects. Ms. Sonali has been named as one of the top 20 interior architects in the country and has accolades like the Z Business Architect of the Year Award. Welcome, Miss Ishi Khosla, a practicing clinical nutritionist, columnist, author, entrepreneur, and a researcher. Passionate about nutrition and a strong believer in power of foods, she spearheaded the first of its kind, a health food company in India called Whole Foods, which is in the business of producing and retailing health foods and operating health cafes. As part of her commitment towards public health and community nutrition, Ms. Khosla founded the Celiac Society of India, the first of its kind in India, to spread awareness about gluten-related disorders in India and internationally. She has been felicitated by the President of India for the work in the field of nutrition. She has also been listed among the 12 most powerful women in the country by the India Today group. Welcome, ma'am. Miss Rita Jhunjhunwala is a poet and an artist. Born in Kolkata, she graduated from the Calcutta University in 1977 with a meritorious distinction and the government scholarship. She underwent extensive training under the eminent national artists and art professors like Indra Dugar, Ashish Mitra, Chitra Majumdar, and Bimal Dasgupta. She has done many group and solo shows all over India and the world. Her passion for writing inspired her to curate an entire collection of paintings entitled Bhigi Lakirein, which is a collection of 40 of her poetry works, with a painting each representing a poem. Rita Jhunjhunwala has followed varying techniques and media and used different kinds of textures like fabrics, paper, gold foil, charcoal, elements of nature to represent her poems through her paintings. Welcome you, ma'am. Ms. Shradha Suri is an entrepreneur and also the chairperson and managing director for the Subros Limited. Presently, Shradha holds the position of Vice President of Automotive Components Manufacturers Association. She leads the ACMA's business development pillar. A graduate in economics from the University of Delhi, she has double degrees, a master's in management from University of Leeds, and MSc in economics and information systems from the London School of Economics and Political Science. Welcome. Professor Asha Verma is a lawyer by profession. She is an alumnus of the Kurukshetra University, having a rich experience in legal field that includes research and administration. She has published more than 25 research papers and presented at many public forums. She is currently the Dean of the IILM Law School, Gurgaon. Good evening. And last, our moderator for the session, Dr. Shakti Luther Kapoor, is an astrologer and was the chairperson and head of Department of Foreign Languages, the director of the Canadian Studies, and the director for International Student Welfare at the Himachal University at Shimla. She holds a doctorate in French Canadian literature. She also has a second doctorate in astrology and has to her 2 decades of study and research experience in the field that has made her a master in 3 distinct branches of astrology, named Hindu Vedic astrology, the KP system, and the Bhrigu Nand Nadi, alongside her deeper intuition of this divine subject. A researcher by nature with a passion to share her findings with the world, she has published dozens of articles in the international journals. I welcome you, ma'am, and would request you to start the session.
Thank you. It's a great honor to be here in front, amidst all these lovely people, and I'm very happy, I'm very proud to be sharing stage with such wonderful personalities. You are all an enigma in yourself, and you come from various, you have a unique set of skills and experiences and background, I know, which we are dying to hear about. I think I'll start with myself. I was, I was born and brought up in the UK. I came from the small town of Slough, and I was born into a house which was full of books. So everywhere it was all about literature and reading and discovering and research. And every Saturday I would find myself taken to the library, and I had to spend half a day on Saturdays sitting in the library. I was just 3 years old, and I was the youngest member of that Slough library. There was even an article published on me as being the youngest member of the library. Books have always been a companion. I had a wonderful education in the UK. The education system is flawless. There is no burden at all. It's not book oriented. It's all very relaxed and very nice. My life changed when I was 15 years old and my parents decided that they wanted to shift back to India. I came here and it was a total cultural crisis. I couldn't speak the language. I didn't like the food. The climate was difficult. Friends, it was difficult. And I had come at a critical time when I was in class 10. And the subjects were totally foreign to me. But somehow I got through. I appeared as a foreign student because I took French and I continued. I was married at the age of 21, and my husband was posted in very remote tribal areas of Himachal Pradesh. So things were like getting from bad to worse because I couldn't. There was no electricity. I was in places where there was 8 foot of snow, and to reach the destination, to reach your house, you had to walk for about 20 kilometers. But I took everything in my stride and took it with a smile on my face. I think if your foundations are strong and you're positive in your mind, you can get through anything. Later on, I joined Himachal University as a lecturer in French, where I carried on with my passion for French, and I have a doctorate in Quebecian literature, in which I've studied the sufferings of the Canadian woman and the plights of the Canadian working woman and compared it with the women of India. I spent a lot of time in Montreal, at McGill University and Laval University studying these topics, and the thesis was well appreciated. I came back, I looked after the Canadian studies in Himachal, everything. My passion for astrology was there since I was a little girl. I felt very intuitive, and I felt that I could read people and read auras, and I'd read a lot about spirituality. So I had joined in the meanwhile Bharati Vidya Bhavan, which is in Delhi, and done all their courses. I'm presently in the research groups also. And last year I quit my government job from the university after teaching there 27 years to get involved in astrology full time and professionally. I think everybody has a calling. Now, we're talking today about women and leadership. So I'm going to give my astrological view about it. I hope you can appreciate it. It's going to be very brief, but I hope you understand it. Yeah, thank you. When we are born, the planets are in a certain position. They're frozen at that time when we are born. And your life will take that route as the planets predict. Wherever you are born, whichever family you're born into, community, country, caste, creed, faith, everything is predestined. It is preordained. Whether you become a leader or you become a loser, it's all predetermined. The planets control everything. There is an element of free will in this, and there's a very complicated karma theory also, but I'm not getting into that today. Right. So, what happens is there are three main planets which need to be strong for somebody to become a leader. You have to have a strong sun. If you're born with a strong sun, a sun which is shining bright, which is not eclipsed, 10th house of your chart, you have leader qualities. Plus, you need a strong Mars, Mangal. Mangal gives what? Energy, power. Hanumanji is Mars. If you have no strength, you will not have the courage, the bravado to fight. You'll be like a Ferrari with no petrol in it, no gas. You won't last long. Third planet, Saturn, Shani. Shani you need. If you have a wonderful Shasha Yoga in your chart, you'll have 1,000 people bowing to you. These three planets are very important. And the time, the dasha that they come, timing is right. If you get the timing when you're 5 years old, what will you do with that? If you get it when you're 90 years old, it's useless. So if it comes at the right time, it's the best thing. If you remember, in 2018, we had 15 women leaders in the world, presidents, prime ministers who came all of a sudden. Just lately, I think two ladies dropped out. One was Liz Truss from the UK, and the other from New Zealand, Arden. She dropped out for personal reasons. Why? It's because they had all the combinations of fantastic leaders, everything. The Shah changed. I was studying that and saw that Mercury came. It's a weak planet. It's a benefic. They resigned. She resigned for personal reasons. So it's very important to study these things. And it's important to have knowledge of these things. I was quite impressed to see when I entered the auditorium today, there's an exhibition going on which shows that the Muslim Mughal emperor Humayun, he was just 22 and he had so much faith in astrology that he used to change his clothes according, he used to wear the colors according to the days of the week. And he used to make the ministers wear those same colors. And his ministries were named after the four elements also. That exhibition is going on right now. You can check it out. I will after this session. Anyway. Okay, coming back to this. I think leadership is not only of people in leaders of big companies or countries or educational institutions or businesses or non-profit ventures. You can all, there are other areas. You can be a leader of your family, of your community, your little tribe. You can be a leader of your siblings also. So it's just having that strength with you. That's a little bit about myself. I think I'll pass it on for somebody else to come up with it. So let's talk to Sonali. Should we pass the mic to you?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today. It's an honor and a pleasure. Uh, to talk a little about myself, I grew up in an extremely emancipated Gujarati family. And I chose to go into a field which was completely alien to my family, which was very academic and sort of steeped in, I would say, they were a bunch of overachievers, my whole family. And to go into architecture was something which was not only alien, but a bit of a thing of being a black sheep, you know. But as I said, since I come from a family which was extremely emancipated, they believed in giving us all the right leeway to pursue our dreams. And I think that's what set me on the course of where I am today. And without the support of my family, it would not have been possible. After I finished grade 12, I had to take, math, physics, and chemistry because that was a prerequisite for doing architecture. And it was really my nemesis. So when I took a train and went to the Baroda school to apply for architecture, I had to go through an entrance exam, which was exactly the same as a grade 12 exam. And I said, this is not happening. I mean, I cannot go through this again, you know. So I took a bus, a state transport bus, and I landed up in Ahmedabad, and I walked into architecture school at SEPT. And when I went there, I said, wow, this is where I want to be. And that is the biggest tribute I have always paid to B.V. Doshi, who has been my mentor and a friend and everything. And unfortunately, he's no more. And that is a great, great tribute to an architect who could evoke a feeling of awe in a 17-year-old who knew nothing about architecture. And I decided that not only do I want to do architecture, but I want to do it right here. I fudged my parents' signature and I applied and I did the exam and I got in, and the rest was history. So this was my sort of foray into architecture. Nobody knew where I was going, what I was doing, but it's the trust that my parents had in me to support. The only thing my father always told me is that whatever you do, just follow your dreams and follow it through. Do not leave anything out, you know. Work at it and make it happen and have that confidence in yourself. And I think these were a few learnings that I will never forget as I grew up and as I sort of went from one stage of life to another. These learnings always stayed with me and they always stood me in great stead, you know. Um, After architecture, I came back to Delhi. I started practicing. Couple of years later, after I was well into my practice, I married my business partner, and we continued the practice, and we sort of did everything. I mean, I always called my office my firstborn, and I always gave it the attention of my firstborn, you know. So there was very little difference between home and office. Everything merged from one to another, and that's what life was for us. And I think it still continues to be the same, you know. Um, I did my thesis when I was a student on urban regeneration and transformation. And that was a subject that stayed with me. And recently I got a chance to be on the Urban Arts Commission. And I also got the chance as a part of the committee to get involved in city level projects. Um, and it gave me the opportunity of rekindling my desire to work at a city level. And I think it's become one of my passions to bring the pedestrian back on our street, because we have lost the pedestrian. As a child, I used to cycle in this area. I used to come to India International Center on a cycle and sit in the library and work on my thesis. Today, that is a distant dream. And I always say that the day I don't have to earn a living, I will dedicate my life to fixing my city. And that's what I look forward to as my ultimate dream in life.
Thank you so much, Sonali. Yes, we wish you all the best for that. You have very clear thoughts and hope it works out for you. I pass the mic now to Ishi.
Thank you, Shakti. Thank you, Malvika, for having me here. It's such an interesting group of people, and it's always nice to share thoughts and your journey. Um, Mine was not such a clarity as, and I have to think back to see what happened in my life to shape my career. But I know a few things for sure that. My household was all about food, which was homemade, and a very evolved sort of approach to food. My father had a science background into chemistry, and my mother also was a home scientist. So the conversations were usually around making this better and making this look better, melting points, boiling points of alcohol in ice cream, and so it was a different sort of a thing. And my father knew what home food was and how different food outside was. So everything was homemade, from jams, jellies to ice creams to breads to all the bakery and cookies and things. So it was just a compelling environment where I absorbed. I didn't have to learn baking. I didn't have to learn cooking basics because the spices and everything was just there. So I absorbed all that, and I think all of that maybe had made me very obese. I was a fat child, and in fact, I was a very fat baby. And I think my mother tells me that she had to take me to the doctor because I wasn't walking until I was 2 years of age, and the doctor said nothing wrong with her, just make her lose some weight and she will walk. So yeah, so it must be a contributor, my food environment and my household. And I think I remained fat till class 8 or 9, where subconsciously, nothing happened consciously. When I think back, something made me lose weight, and I went on my own. That time we were not so aware and things were not out there. But I think I just started missing dinners and felt very good. And in about a year, I was half my size. My teachers were amazed. My parents were worried that why is my child not eating? But I lost my weight then. And with that weight loss came a sense of control, a empowerment, a feeling of confidence, which I never had maybe before that. I was just fat and I was happy being that way. But somewhere this was a transformational body, you know how it is, the body image. It just had a huge impact. And that got me reading and studying nutrition facts. I picked up books in bookshops and started reading about vitamins, about calories, about all that. And even started taking some supplements on my own. And I realized that, hey, I was taking vitamin A and my skin was improving and my acne was going away. You know, little things which were happening. And I said, I think this is so interesting. So my interest in food in this in this aspect just grew, and maybe was the reason why I did what I did. Healing, perhaps, if I look back, nothing active and nothing really that I can say. But I remember telling my mother and my father that I want to study. Till I did not know degrees then. When I was a little kid, I said I want to study the highest. So I had some desire there to study, and I remember telling them I want to find a drug for cancer. I want to find the cure for cancer. It must be I was a little child watching those movies, you know, the Anands and the Safars where heroes were dying of cancer. So it kind of must have impacted me. So if I put all these, join these dots, I just feel it came to me naturally. And somewhere I decided I was to do medicine, and I decided not to do medicine in class 10th. I opted for science and biology, but decided to pick up nutrition as my choice, and did not fill up a single form for medicine. And it was just one college I applied, and that's what it is. So I have been, I think, surrounded by the environment, and I have to say it's been quite a journey. I started my professional career. I finished my master's from Lady Irwin College in Delhi University, and then I was married and had children, and I was very clear that I will devote my time, my quality time to my children in the early years, and thankfully they both happened early enough. So I finished that part, and when they were both going to school, I went to Escorts Heart Institute in 1994, and just told Dr. Thrayan that I'd like to work with you. And he said, why suddenly, you know, what is it? I said, no, I just like this field. So I was very lucky that I just walked into this place and I got an opportunity. It was my stepping stone in my career. And things have never really looked back. And all I'll say is that from nothing is orchestrated or planned for me. This just happened, and I became the head of preventive cardiology in the cardiac center there. I was a consultant. I did not want to do a full day, so I got everything what I wanted. The way things really, they did not happen in my profession that way. So I managed to do a work-life balance, and from there I felt a sense of uneasiness, a disturbed sort of a feeling that I'm advising my patients to eat a certain way, to have these kind of snacks, which, or the bakery, which is not available in the market. You know, it's not easily available. The atta, if I'm asking them to blend the atta, it's just not there. And if I'm asking them to have things like amla or, just value-added food. It was just not there. And that feeling of hollow advice was bothering me. I said, I have to make it available. Otherwise, it's pointless talking about it. Then the other thing I was noticing while I was practicing is that all that we have learned in college, in our textbooks, is not matching up. So, for instance, eating cholesterol rich food was not increasing blood cholesterol in most people. And that was what we were taught, lower the cholesterol rich food or lower saturated fat, and this will happen. And this wasn't happening. So, my mind was always questioning and analyzing, and I first wrote my book. My first book was in Escott's Heart Institute on cholesterol facts. And I said, people must know, and there is more to this than what we have learned in our textbooks. And that exploratory, and the analytical nature continued. And we today find that these are really not, this is not mathematics. Your cholesterol may be high and you may still not have heart disease, and your cholesterol may be low and there may be. So there were lots of gaps. And with all of that, I said we need to relook at fat. That was the first thing, that all fats are not bad, cholesterol in the diet is not bad. And I said butter and ghee need their position back. And I studied and I researched, and I realized there were papers which were talking about, the bad fats, the trans fats, which were the bad ones, and which we were consuming as heart healthy fats. I'm going into a little detail to tell you the anguish which I used to suffer as a practitioner. That here we are talking about margarine, is cholesterol free, and it's full of trans fats. And my father used to talk about trans fats when I was a kid. And I said, this is not happening. Margarine is not going to be served in Escott's Heart Institute if I am sitting there. It doesn't make sense because it is inflammatory. And just because it's cholesterol free, it's not good. So I started making, we used to make bakery with butter and, with good fats in the house. So I said, these have to be out there. So this germination of this thought of making things available happened while I was in Escorts. And I had to do it myself, because I did give these ideas to Dr. Trehan. I said, let's do something in this space of health foods. And he said, well, you speak to Rajananda. And I said, well, I'm not doing that, but if you want to do it in the hospital, let's start right here. So it didn't happen, and I finally was able to convince my father-in-law and my husband to help me put it together while I was in Escorts, and it just happened. And so 2001, Whole Foods was born. Right there is a very small experiment, like a pilot project, and it's grown on organically. And then another, story happened in my life, and maybe I will talk about it a little later. But I founded the Celiac Society of India with a personal story, and realized that gluten and celiac disease are really not known the way they should be known, and people are suffering needlessly. So again, it came into my lap to start the first Celiac Society of India. And so it's like I said, it's not planned, it's just happened. And then various books happened, and then I've been writing regularly in columns. And it's been a very, very rewarding journey. And my fifth book has just been released. It's called The 4Gs. The 4Gs is gut, girth, gluten, and glucose, and to help you join the dots. And so that's where I am today.
That's truly wonderful. It's been a fascinating journey for you, and I salute you for your transformation and you're coming out with it. That's very brave of you.
Thank
and
you.
I especially like the bit when you said ghee and butter should come back. I like that bit.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, we'll carry on with Rita. You tell us a bit about yourself.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Malvika, for having me here after a lot of persuasion. So, I'm basically an artist and a poet in that order, because I am primarily an artist, and I've been painting since as long as I remember in the past. And I used to be punished very often in the class for doodling while the teacher was teaching history or something. And I was born and brought up in Calcutta, tutored there, Kolkata, and then after, when I was 13, I got the Soviet Land Nehru Award, which kind of made me famous in my school because the Russian ambassador came and gave it to me. I was called to Delhi, and the President of India awarded me that. So everybody who met me asked me, "So what are you painting these days?" And I had to take myself seriously. So I have been painting since then, and but then I got married, came to Delhi, and my first solo exhibition was in 1981 in Triveni, in Sridharani Gallery. And after one or two exhibitions, then I participated in an exhibition in France, where my work was displayed in the Grand Palais in Paris, and I was awarded there. And then they invited me to Italy, where again I got a medal, and so on. All this really encouraged me to go further down my path in a very single pointed manner. And so far, I've had about 24 solo shows and a lot of group shows all across India, and then in China and Italy, London, Switzerland, and all that. As for poetry, like I have been writing poems from the very beginning, and they are more for me a means of de-stressing myself. Like whenever I'm emotionally overwhelmed, I this is my way of de-stressing. I just pen my thoughts down, and I feel better. Then I can move on in a more positive manner. So then one fine day, I decided to compile them, and then I said, why don't I make my pen and my brush like talk meaningfully to people together? So I wanted to depict them on canvas, and that is how Bhigi Lakirein came into being, my first book, which was published recently. So that has been my journey so far, and I have miles to go right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita, and we wish you more strength also for your future journey. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Shraddha, would you care to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me here. Thank you, Auntie, for making me part of this very accomplished panel. I feel humbled. My journey is. I wouldn't say. I don't think I'm that accomplished to begin with because I have a long way to go. But I was born of parents who were actually born in undivided India and had moved to Delhi as refugees when they were little kids. Uh, my my personal story is a bit interesting because uh, I was actually adopted by my father's older brother who did not have children. So I mean, biologically, I have three other siblings, and we all lived together. So there were four parents and four kids. I was number two, and we grew up like that. One thing that our parents said to us is that life's a circle. Everything, whatever's up will come down, whatever's down will go up. The only thing that remains constant is education. So they really pushed us, especially my fathers, both of them really pushed us hard to study. And therefore, I'm an academic at heart, and I kept studying till they said, okay, what do you stop or, move to the next. As part of the family business, there were various sectors that our family is involved in. And my adopted father was actually looking after the manufacturing space, auto component manufacturing. And after I had worked and studied in England for a long time, I came back, not because he called me back, but because I was in love and I wanted to get married to my that time boyfriend and now my husband of 20 years. And we have three lovely children together. So I came back and then I started working. I actually entered into a world which was completely male dominated. Without realizing that, I entered. But when I entered, I entered without judgment. So I entered just as myself. It was a while. And we had Japanese partners who, again, were very, very male oriented. I didn't realize that till I was confronted with it on several occasions. However, I just took it in my stride, and I think I was just thick-skinned. I kept moving on, and I grew. Got into the business, and I grew the business, and then I think the change point for me was in 2016, when one of our large factories actually caught fire and was gutted. It was a very, very large factory, and we were a single source to one of the large car makers in India, and it was completely gutted. Nothing was left, not a shard. And I stood there just seeing the ashes, 20 acres of ashes, and said, what are we going to do? At that time, I got calls from all over saying that we have 11 days to start production, because if we don't, the car manufacturer is going to stop, and if they stop, there's going to be mayhem. So while the factory was burning, I got a team together and we started to work on a plan to actually restart this whole thing. And in 13 days, we supplied 40% of our, capacity. In 30 days, we were on 70%, and in 45 days, we were at 90%. We reconstructed, thank you. We reconstructed that factory as a better, leaner, safer plant in 9 months. Today, it's a showcase plant for the entire auto component fraternity. But I do think that fire is what actually was the change point in my life. It led to the emergence, both my emergence as well as the emergence of the organization. At that time, I had just, my father said to me, he said, you know what? We're like the phoenix, we keep rising from the dead. So bear that in mind. What's happened, leave it behind you, keep looking forward. I did. Life has been very challenging. I lost both my parents in COVID, one to COVID, one subsequently, though I think it was also, to do with COVID, because she did have COVID when my father had COVID. It's been a rough phase, but and after that, all the businesses that they were looking after between my parents, everything's come onto my lap, and every day when I get up, for the last 2 years, I said, how am I going to put a method to this madness? And I went back to my concepts in economics, and I started to plan. I made a chart of demand and supply. What is demanded of me, both personally and professionally, and what is it that I can give in terms of supply, both personally and professionally. I mean, I do have 3 kids, 2 of which are teenagers, and teenagers can be very, very troublesome. So I had to balance it all out, and instead of what we did is I tried to reinvent my whole strategy. Instead of thinking long term, which everybody else in my field is doing because auto is booming, everybody's making a 5-year, 10-year plan. I started making a plan for the day. I started to say, what am I going to do today? List it out. I'm not going to think tomorrow, because tomorrow's too far. I don't know what's going to happen. And over the last 2 years, I've moved from day to week to month, and now to year. So I just stood where I was, and I said, this is not a time. This is what this was my view on it. I said, this is not a time for me to try and keep on moving, because there were too many moving parts around me. So I stood where I was, and I said, let the storm pass. I'm going to regain our strength, and then we're going to take the next leap. And when we take the next leap, it's going to be a bigger leap than we've ever taken before. So I have to thank my biological. So out of the 4 parents that I have, only one is left, and she is, I think, one of she's so unique and so strong. She's there for us emotionally, physically, mentally, through all our ups and downs. So while my other siblings actually look after other businesses, I think that when I look back today, I don't feel that there's no one. I look back and I see a strong support, not only in my husband and kids, but also in my siblings and my biological mother. I think that the whole ecosystem needs to work together for it to be successful. I don't think any individual can make this happen by themselves. And if we work together as the ecosystem, as you said, the planets have to all align. The ecosystem needs to align. If it doesn't align, that's a problem. So that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Absolutely, Shraddha. Such an extraordinary life you've led. You seem to have lived many lifetimes in one life. But salute you again for your resilience and your courage to come back onto your feet. Next, we have Asha with us, who will be telling us a little bit about her life,
Hello.
her journey.
Yeah, am I audible? Yeah.
Yes.
So, Asha is known for speaking her heart and not her mind. So, I'll speak with the word Dilli. ये दिल्ली है मेरे यार बस प्यार इश्क मोहब्बत. So, good evening, a very pleasant Dilli wali evening to everyone who is present here. Yesterday I was sitting over there, today I am sitting here. Thank you Malvika ma'am for, giving me this opportunity. And the theme of the today's evening, Dilli ki Mahilayen. So I don't think कि Dilli ki Mahilayen, this whole world belongs to us, every female. So I'll start because I am more into literature. I am more into, this. I'm more a romantic person. So you will not find any legal content from my, speech from my session. So I'll start from a line of Amrita Pritam, one of my favorites. She says, "जहाँ भी आज़ाद रूह की झलक मिले, समझ लेना मेरा घर वहीं है." And she inspires the romantics in me, and it completes my entire personality and the way of being. Now coming to my personal, life, I belong to a very typical orthodox conservative Jat family in Haryana, the Khap Panchayat type families. So, but my father was an army officer, and but my maternal uncles, my paternal uncles, so everyone was against the education of girl students. So, but my father, because he kept on, moving from one place to the other, so we moved along with him. So my schooling, I did my schooling from various places. But whenever, because during that I'm talking about, starting from 1984 till 1989, when there were no internet, nothing was there. So in our summer vacations, we used to visit our grandfather, grandmother's, nani and dadi's house. And every time they used to say, what your girl is wearing, why she's wearing shorts, why she's wearing jeans, why she is, wearing trousers. And my father, he always supported me. He did not say anything to my dadi or my nani, but he always supported me. In fact, I never, faced any discrimination at my home, my father's home. In fact, I was more privileged than both of my brothers. 1985 till 1988, I did swimming, and I, won 2 gold medals in the male category. The reason being because girls were not there in the swimming, so my father taught me how to swim, and I was a very good swimmer. So I took participation in the swimming competition, and because there were no girls, so the coach, he put me in the male category. So everyone was, okay, why the girl, what she is doing in the male category? But because there were no girls, I wanted to participate, but girls category were not there. I won 2 medals, and the rest of the boys, there were 7 boys, I was the only girl, and I won gold medal in the first and again in the next year then. Then I did horse riding for 5 years when no girls were there. For 5 years, horse riding I did. Then I got, this was my, the previous, before I got married. Then coming to my married life, I got married to a businessman, and I was 24 when I got married. And there is a very, interesting incident why I got married to a businessman, because at that time, there was no courtship, I did not have any boyfriend or anything, because as I said, I came from a very conservative family, so talking to boys was out of the question. So see, love marriage or having boyfriends were out of this world. So there was a proposal for me that the girl, this Jat boy is from IIT Roorkee and he is based in US. So your girl, she will be happy and this and that. So this was only on cards. So I did not meet that boy. मैं उससे तब मिली नहीं. My husband, my current husband, so he came to meet me, and he just asked me one thing. बिकॉज इन जाटों में आपको पता है जो बेटा होता है उसके लिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंस होती है सोसाइटी में, आप इफ यू आर हैविंग 2 girls 3 girls. So my husband, he just asked me one thing, कि I do not want you, कि whether you can cook, whether you can drive, whether you can do this, I just want one thing, कि in case if we get married, so we'll have just one child, whether it is a girl, whether it is a boy. That was the only thing, कि I am going to marry this boy. So we have one child. Then the why? Then after marriage, I asked him, why did you say that at that particular point of time? So he said कि in जाटों की family में औरतों को ज़्यादा रहता है कि we should have a male child. So that was the reason कि कल ये ना कह दो कि बेटी अगर पहले हो गई तो मुझे एक बेटा भी चाहिए. So that was the reason I got married to this person. Now coming to my professional life, so I did my LLB in June 97. October 97, I got married. At that time, the Bar Council of India, they had made a resolution that in case if you want to practice, for practicing we know that we require a license. So you have to practice for 11 months and then only you will get the license. So that was a mandatory requirement. So I got married in October 12, I got married. October 21st, I went to Patiala House and I registered myself. I think I am the only lawyer in the whole world who practiced only just for 4 days. And 5th day, I was at my home, no, practice is not my area. And again, there is an interesting story behind this. The first day, I went to Patiala House, and there were so many lawyers. And they said, where is Laddu? Because this is your first day, so you should, bring Laddu. So, मैंने लड्डू कहीं से खरीदा और उनको दिया. Next day, again, when I again went back to, went to Patiala House, again, another bunch of lawyers, again they came, again they said कि यार लड्डू नहीं लेकर के आए, वो तो उन्होंने खाए थे. Again, second day again I brought, third day फिर मैं एक लड्डू का, जब fourth day आया, fifth day I was sitting and then I told my husband कि I am not going to practice. He said why? Because see, I was looking at the directory and there are more than 2,000 lawyers. अगर हर दिन मैं एक लड्डू लेके गई तो 11 महीने निकल जाएंगे and I will get the license. So what is the purpose of going at 9 a.m. coming back at 5:30 जब मेरा काम लड्डू देने से हो जाएगा? Then I realized कि नहीं, this is not my cup of tea, I am not going to practice. And then the coming June, I took admission in LLM. And then, so you can say I am a lawyer by profession, but I am an academician by choice. I started working with my, I started my career in 2003 with the institution. I started teaching. The first, batch that I taught was MBA. So I was teaching industrial relations to the MBA student. So imagine there were many students. I was just 32 or 33, and there were students who were, whose age were more than 40 plus. So I used to tell them, sir, आप ये ऐसे आप attendance में आपको कैसे दे दूँ? मैं आपको ये कर दूँ नहीं? Sir, you are a teacher. Why can't you say कि जय प्रकाश ये और वो ऐसे? That was my first experience. Then I moved to another institution where they were setting up the law school. I worked there for 13 years. Then on 1st March, I completed 2 years at IILM University. So this is how my professional journey is. Two things if you ask me that who are your guru, who is your mentor, who is your guiding force, so there are just two people in my life. Pre-marriage, it was my father who taught me the value of education. He always said, and I still remember, he used to tell me, Asha, tum kuch bhi kar sakti ho, you can do anything. And yes, now I am sitting in front of you and I can say, yes, I can do anything. अगर आपको मुझसे कोई भी काम करवाना है, you just say कि आशा तुम ये नहीं कर सकते, and it will be done within minutes. I can do anything. आप मुझे बोलोगे एवरेस्ट पे चढ़ जाओ, मैं एवरेस्ट पे भी चढ़ सकती हूँ. I do not know what will happen after this, but yes, I can do. The second thing is my husband. My freedom, equality. He taught me the value of freedom. He taught me the value of equality. And he always says कि, and the most important quotient that is in my life is happiness and just happiness. This quotient has been given by my husband. He always says that, Asha, happiness has nothing to do with gender. It has nothing to do with a male or a female. If you are happy, it hardly matters you are a male, you are a female, or you are transgender. And this is, I have also got one life, you have also got one life. So why to regret in anything? मैं आपको कहूँ कि आपने ये करना है, आपने ये करना. I'll give you an example. That is for females in this society. They get social freedom, they get emotional freedom, but financial freedom to some extent they do not get. I have seen my relatives, my bhabis, my mother, and my friends, my relatives. I have seen this in my society. But the financial freedom that have been given to me, that is, it's brilliant. I started working in 2003, and my first salary was 6,500 rupees, just 6,500 rupees. In 2008, there was a friend of mine and who was going through some financial crisis. So she asked me कि आशा तेरे पास पैसे हैं, because she knew कि मेरी family background कैसा है, कि इसका husband जो है he doesn't ask for money. So I said कि मेरे पास शायद 3-3.5 लाख रुपए होगा, and that included money from my parents and this. She said कि can you give it to me? I just kept quiet. I went back. I asked my husband, see that female, she is suffering from this. So she asked me this thing. My husband, and that was in 2008 or 9. Now it is 2023. He told me one thing. He said just one thing. He said, आशा तुमने ये पैसे कमाए हैं, तुमने सुबह उठ करके अपना काम किया, डांट भी खाई होगी, मेहनत भी की है, रात तक मेहनत की है, अपने बच्चे को भी भेजा है. This money only belongs to you. This is one thing. Second thing, मैंने कहा अगर उसने पैसे वापस नहीं किए तो, then again he said that this is a relationship that you know better. अगर तुम्हारा रिलेशनशिप इस बेस पे बेटर है, इस बात पे बेस करता है कि अगर उसने पैसे नहीं वापस किए तो तुम्हारा रिलेशनशिप खराब हो जाएगा, then I say that this is not a relationship at all. So it is completely your discretion. I will not ask, I will not say you want to give the money, कल वो पैसा वापस नहीं आता. Do not worry, do not spoil your relationship, do not ruin your relationship. That was in 2008, and the same thing goes in 2023.
Wonderful, that is. Thank you, Asha,
Thank you
so
so
much
much
for such an animated account of your life. I'm very impressed. These are true Mars women. Look at the energy levels, courage in all of you. I just wanted to ask, just as for a discussion's sake, do you think it's easier to follow one's dream today than it was, let's say, 2-3 decades ago for women? What type of problems are we facing which were not there previously, or vice versa? Are the hurdles the same, or have they become easier or worse? What is your take on this? What do you think, Shradha?
So I only started working 2 decades ago, but but having said that, I think you know we have a lot of discussions on is life easier for men or for women, and what should and should not happen. I do think that the world is changing. Today, organizations, and I can speak for organizations, look at skill. It's skill that is important, not the gender. And because that is happening, people who are coming into the workforce are coming for their ability, for their skill. And I think leadership is changing. When leadership changes, your mindset changes. Leadership brings culture, and that's going down. So I do think that things are becoming more inclusive for everyone, males included. I mean, not just females. So I think that's how it's going. That's how I think is going in our space, which was very, very male dominated.
So starting a business today and what it was starting it about 20 years ago, has it improved? Is it easier now, or do you feel it's more difficult?
I think it's far easier today.
Far easier?
Yes.
Yeah.
With technology and all the social media and all the support that is available from the government and to entrepreneurs, definitely much more.
And if we look at women leaders today and women leaders of past centuries, who was it easier for? Was it easier for them or us? To name a few.
I don't think it was easy in any time. It's always got a lot of challenges, but problems are a state of mind. All the women who put their problems aside and took a positive attitude and focused on their work got ahead. So I think the same problems have persisted through the ages, and it is only their frame of mind and their attitude which has set them apart, according to me. I'll give you a small example about my mother. For all the years as I grew up, I always worshipped my father at a personal level. I just thought he was a role model in every way. And more importantly, for a person who could leave a lucrative law practice way back in 1960 or something, and he followed his dreams to become a judge, and then of course went on to become the Chief Justice. So he was somebody who I always considered a role model as a epitome of hard work. But after he passed away, what really surprised me was my mother, who had always been a housewife and a mother for all these years, and at a grand age of 91, had the courage to start a business. And she started a small food catering business at a very small scale, but I think with diligence and hard work, she has really made it grow in her own way, and now she's known for herself. And now when she goes somewhere, people do not come to her as Mrs. Bhagwati, but they come to her as Prabhavati Bhagwati, who is a person in her own right. And at the age of 96, by the grace of God,
It's wonderful.
she
You
continues to prosper.
You have a lineage of extraordinary women in your family, I think. Yes, right. Anybody like to add on that? And do you think, Asha, that women are at a disadvantage because of our personal commitments to family and children? Like we saw the resignation of that New Zealand Prime Minister. It was just because she said, I've got no energy left in the tank. There's nothing left in the tank. And some people are resigning because for children.
Yeah, this is so true. The reason being because as a female, if see, I have a son and who has been a boarding student throughout his life. So I will say because the reason being, every day I used to travel for at least 1.5 hours from my workplace to my home. So finally, ultimately, then I said, ki, okay, let's leave my job. So my husband said, ki, no, let's work out some other things. And then we filled up some boarding schools forms, and finally my son, he was transferred to a boarding school. So this is my personal experience that yes, this is you will find that yes, females to some extent they have to compromise on certain things, whether it is career, when you become a mother. So ultimately, maternity leave is given to a female, and in case if tomorrow the question comes ki whether who is going to look after the child, so the husband generally they do not say ki okay, you just continue with your job, I will not, I will be at home.
Right,
So
correct.
this is yes, so this is true to some extent,
All
and this
right.
is I think this is a natural thing because biologically we are mother, they are not mothers.
And Rita, could you share some views on that point?
Well, I think I agree with her totally. But
Yes.
I also think that today it's much easier for women because, the horizons have kind of widened. And earlier, there were a lot of barriers to equality, much more, like say 30 years back or 40 years back. So, but yes, the women who had strength, inner strength, they came up. Like in the field of art, Amrita Shergill, who was quite a rebellion, we still appreciate her work so much. Indira Gandhi, all those people. But today, it's having said that it's easier. Still, there are many challenges. There is unequal
Unequal
pays,
pay,
unequal
yes,
pays,
yes.
and harassment.
Yes, and I think through history we have seen that it's always been a
Yeah,
bit
so it's
difficult
still
for
there,
women.
but it has diluted.
It
to
has
us.
diluted. It's much
so
easier
it's
for us
easier.
now.
That's my thought.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
But I'd just like to add here that yes, women are powerful. There's no question of not being, that's an oxymoron. Women have the strength, it's just like your Shakti. But it's suppressed, and it's suppressed for reasons which we all know. But so some of them fight that and come out in the open and do what they have to, and some remain within the domains of their domestic life. But even then, they do a great job. Whether it's managing a house or their children or the finances, whatever. I think that's not really given too much of a recognition. I mean, if they're not doing it successfully outside, they are doing it within their homes. And that also deserves a lot of credit.
Yeah, so times truly have changed
Yes,
for us.
yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Talking of Shakti, where do you get your inner strength when things are not going straight, not going right, not going in your favor? Where is it that you get your strength from? You were talking about guru and mentor. For you, who is your pillar of strength? Who gives you your strength and energy?
See, I was born in a very emancipated family who they didn't believe in hand holding. So I had to choose everything myself. But thankfully, I was married also in a family like that. And I would say the one sole person whom I would give credit was my father-in-law, who not only agreed with what my choices were, but who really encouraged me to go forward. And despite having kids and everything, like he would say that no, you have to paint every day. Forget it. If you even if you paint for an hour. And I had very good teachers, fortunately. And one of my teacher had said that maybe you don't have any time in those 24 hours, but you can find out 5 minutes to draw a sketch. Don't leave it. So even when my kids were born, every day I was doing something.
Oh,
Like
so
even if
it's
for
like it was
five
a form of
minutes, 10 minutes,
meditation for
yes.
you. It becomes therapeutic.
It's totally like a
Yes, I find
therapy.
that with myself also. If I'm
Yes.
very upset, I just turn to my books, my
Yes.
spirituality, my meditation. That's what gives you your inner
It
strength.
gives you a balance in life.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. For Shraddha, for you, what is your core strength? What is the
So,
strength
you
it
know,
gives you?
life has been tumultuous. I do think that my mother, who's no longer there with me, she was, her stoic silence was her biggest strength. Uh, she showed the path, but she never walked the path with me, never. She let me make my mistakes, and she said, the choices are yours, and the consequences are yours. I do go back to that very often. And whenever in doubt, instead of reacting, I sit out of it. I sit out of it and think like what she would have done if she was around, and because she was my soundboard. And I think that's it. I don't think I've reached that level of spirituality yet where I can,
Still
maybe
too
one
young.
day, but
You're
no,
young.
it hasn't
Yes.
happened for me so far.
All right. Just to conclude, one last question. If you could reboot, would you follow the same path or would you make some changes? Just very briefly in a word or two.
I
Sonali.
wouldn't change my life for anything. I have, I think, done everything that I wanted to, and I think I've got miles to go before I sleep. And I
Still
pray
so
to
much
God
to
that I
go.
keep working and I keep doing what I want to do and achieve all my dreams. I just want to follow my dreams. So
Wonderful.
I don't want to change anything.
Great. And Ishi, ditto.
Well, if I have to reboot my life, may not be anything, but yeah, if I reboot my professional perspective, I would. And I think as a practicing nutritionist, I'm proud of the science that I have studied and learned, but I also feel that we made mistakes and to communicate the right path of eating correctly, to following the right diet and the right selections of food, we need not use the nutrition science for that. We need to use food and in real terms what people eat. Getting into too many nutrition facts, it's a great science for the professional, but communicated, as we call nutrition education, is not required. We need food literacy. We also, I would love to rewire this whole science with the with the perspective of the traditional wealth of information which our science has ignored, whether it's the Chakra Samhita or the Atharvaved, where all the wisdom is there about food. We
Treasure troves.
cannot divorce from that. We can't do without it. We need to work on that and bring that back.
All right.
So
Okay, thank you. And Rita, for you, rebooting?
If I could go back in time, there's one decision which of mine which I really regret and I would change it. Um, when I was in college, going to college, I was good at my sciences, so my teachers pushed me into taking up science. I didn't go to an art college. I did learn under art professors, very good ones, but it's not the same thing. Going to an institute and so many techniques of like litho and etching and this that I've missed out on that.
Missed out on that,
So
yes.
I would definitely go back to
All
the
right, different college.
art college.
I know for me, I don't think I would change anything because the amount of cultures I have visited, the countries, everything, I wouldn't have had it any other way. And I feel so at home with my subjects here. Shradha?
So I think that life's a journey, and I think that as you said, it's predestined. I'm happy with the cards that I've been dealt. I'll play the game with the cards that I've been dealt,
Very
and
well
I'll do
said.
that with confidence, because I know the cards that I've dealt. You don't, so I'm going to play anyway. I do think life is about choices. Every day is a choice, and going forward. Uh, you know, we're going to make our choices, and we are going to see the consequences of it, good and bad. So I'm happy with that.
Asha, a final word from you.
My motto of life is take life as it comes. And there are two words that is not in my dictionary. One is struggle and the second is regret. I do not regret anything. So that is the reason that I'm very happy. God has always been very kind to me, whether it is my personal life, whether it is my professional life. And I believe that God, I'll quote Amrita Pritam because I'm more into Amrita Pritam. जिंदगी तुम्हारे उसी गुण का इम्तिहान लेती है जो तुम्हारे अंदर होता है मेरे अंदर इश्क है इससे ज़्यादा कोई क्या करेगा
Thank you, Asha. Thank you. And with that, we come to the end of this session. I thank you all. I think this was a wonderful session. Thank you. It's truly enriching.